The first meeting of the 23rd Council will come to order. All councilors are present this evening. We'll start with a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance led by Vice President Winter.
Please join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Civic Plaza parking passes are provided for members of the public. You can obtain a parking pass from the council staff at the sign-up table, and the council will take a break, if necessary, at approximately 7 p.m. this evening. And we have our new mayor, Tim Keller, here, and we'd like to invite him up to say a few words and welcome him.
Well, Mr. Chairman and councilors, it's an honor to stand before you. I've been before you many a time, but I guess never as your mayor before. So I know we had some good discussions earlier, and I wanted to make sure and come down and just say hello. So no major business to transact or anything, but I did want to share a couple of things by way of update. Number one, just that I'm looking forward to working with each and every one of you. And folks know that in my role in the state senate and also as state auditor, I've been very accessible, I think very easy to work with, even when we disagree. And so I want to continue to honor that commitment. I'm fortunate that despite the fact that we've only had, I think it was 8 business days for transition, we're in very good shape considering we've only had 8 days. However, there's a lot of things we've got to do that are going to take 60 days. And so wanted to ask a little bit for your patience, in some ways your forgiveness. We are still working through the basics of, it's almost like the first day of school. I remember today a little bit, I felt like the first day of school. It's like, well, where's your locker and what's your combo? And you're trying, to find your classroom. And there's a little bit of that, so I don't want to ignore the human element. Obviously, we're ready to do the job and we're here, but just want to let you know, some minor things like phone numbers and cell phones and getting the IT system set up, we're still working through. And so I'm sure in a couple of days we'll have that all ironed out. Now, also, of course, we have some executive appointments, which I know we'll do in the course of time at your whatever is normal protocol for council. But we also need to put folks here at this table before you. So they might or may not be introduced, but let me take the opportunity. Our COO, Lawrence Rael, who I think you've all met. He's looking forward to working with you. Our CAO, Sarita Nair. And Samantha, your last name, Holtz. This is what happens when you're new. So, let's see. I think I introduced everyone I need to here. The Chief of Staff, Sunile Stewart's going to be coming down as well. And if one of I also just want to do a couple of, if someone could tell our chief, also we wanted to introduce him. He's waiting for me to text him, but again, since we don't have landline phones, thank you. So I'll share my thoughts and then we'll introduce the chief and we'll get out of your way. Okay, so Chief of Staff, Sunile Stewart will be down shortly. He's working on our IT issues. Now he's right here. This is Sunile Stewart, Chief of Staff. And of course, you'll all be reviewing their resumes and so forth, and they will be available to meet with you over the next few weeks, and of course, hopefully over the next 4 years. Okay, so let me share this. Number one, I want to invite you to an event tomorrow. We just now got out an email, I think, to reflect that, but it's a special event for our city. It's important for our community. We know that it is late notice, but it's just a function of these transition timelines. Our new chief of police will be sworn in, along with the new deputies, tomorrow at 10 o'clock at the Balloon Fiesta Park. I think it's now the Sid Cutter building, but there'll be folks directing people. And again, that's very important. I know we are going to make sure that the chief is also available to each of you, as well as the deputy chiefs. Folks, I think, understand the formalities around swearing in, even your own swearing in or the one we did last week. It's very important for our city and also important for officers to proceed with that ritual, and so we want to do that. And just letting you know, that's why we want to do it tomorrow. Obviously, it would have been great to wait 2 months and then have all this pageantry, but as you know, our city has many challenges, including a huge crime challenge. So we want a sworn-in chief of police tomorrow. Obviously, he's been working since Friday, but it's important to kind of go through those important rituals for the officers especially. So let me introduce our deputy chiefs while we're here, if they're still close by. Okay, deputy chiefs, come on down to say a quick hello. As well, Garcia. So this is Deputy Chief Medina. You might remember him. Again, all their resumes and background will be available to you. He'll be getting sworn in tomorrow. Deputy Chief Garcia, of course, is staying on with us. He's going to be, in large part, quarterbacking a lot of the DOJ issues, oversight, and so forth, some other things. And is Banyas here? Or he might not be here this evening.
He's not here this evening.
He'll be here tomorrow, our other Deputy Chief Banyas. Okay, so I think with that, let me just check and make sure oh yes, one other thing, and then hopefully we'll have Mike here. Okay, transition. If you are interested in our evaluation process, we are going to do what it always takes about 60 days to do and is important to do, even though we're already in office. And what I mean by that is we're going to go through each department and have a proper transition and evaluation process. There's a gentleman who already is in City Hall and who is a holdover from the previous administration. His name is Frank Mirabal. He'll be heading that up, so if you have questions, et cetera, you can contact him with respect to that. This is also a process traditionally where the community is engaged. They'll be working with that as well. So picture your standard transition process where there's a memo, there's things to stop, start, continue. They may or may not do so. There may or may not be personnel commentary, a normal transition process. That's what we're going to go through for each department. Obviously, we had to make some quick choices early on and some interim and acting appointments. Those appointments will be formally sent to you if they haven't been already, if not tomorrow. Again, relating to some of these IT issues with respect to literally sending emails. We're not quite able to do that yet. So you will know who is the director of record shortly, and if you have questions, our staff can also answer that too. Now, each one of those positions will be evaluated over the next 2 months. So some folks might be around for a little bit, some folks might be staying. We're going to do it right, and we're going to take our time and do it right. But we know that we're going to have capable, professional, qualified folks in that position now and also going forward over that period. And so that's why you'll see, I think, by and large, 2/3, 3/4 of them are the same people who are there now, or they're the deputy who's been there, the associate director. Okay, so I think with that, I don't have too much else to offer, but I can filibuster. I learned that in the legislature. And so he just passed his physical, so I'm sure he's maybe, he's ready to run. Some fun facts about Chief Mike Geyer. He coaches a hockey team. So I know not, it's sort of, I was like, hockey team? We have hockey in New Mexico? We do at the Outpost Arena. Chief, go ahead and come on down. Yeah, I was stalling for you. Perfect timing. I was supposed to text you. I did not because we don't have our phone set up. So anyway, I think if we could, let's just welcome our new law enforcement leadership with a round of applause. All right, so what we'll do is we'll have a swearing in for them tomorrow. They will obviously be available to you throughout this process. And then we're looking at sometime this week, we'll also have some public availability for folks listening online or on TV. We will have a media avail and so forth for them once they're sworn in. So we're all going to get to know each other in due time. And in the meantime, thank you, and I look forward to working with each and every one of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Keller. All right. And very much appreciate getting our police command in place and for the interim, very important. We have a relatively brief agenda tonight, and we'll move on to administration question and answer. I guess I should have left the mayor up there for that, but I personally don't think a lot of detail is in order at this point, but if there are any specific questions for the administration at this time, councilors. And if not, we'll move on. We have
Mr. President?
Yes, Councilor.
I don't have any questions. I would just like to welcome the administration to City Hall, and we are looking forward to working with you.
Absolutely. No economic development discussion tonight, nor proclamations or presentations. I will just say with proclamations, we have one that we would normally have tonight, but we don't have it before us, and that's because Mr. Joe Green could not be here tonight. But Joe and I have conversed about how important Pearl Harbor Day is. And so we don't have a proclamation tonight, but I want everyone to be aware of that sacrifice. And we've had some wonderful people, and Joe has been, I guess, an honorary chairman of sorts of the Pearl Harbor survivors here locally, and always wanted us to have a proc, but let's all try to remember that on the 7th of what an important day that was, and that we do still have a couple, I believe, survivors here in town, but certainly many around the country. And then we'll move on to approval of the journal. Vice President Winter.
Thank you, Mr. President. For my last time, I move approval of the November 20th journal.
There's a motion and a second for approval of the journal. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? And that passes. We'll move to communications and introduction. Are there any changes to the letter of introduction? I have a few here. I move the rules be suspended for the purpose of placing EC1 on tonight's agenda for final action. EC1 is the appointment of Sarita Nair to the position of Chief Administrative Officer. And there's a motion and a second. And this does require 2/3 vote of the council.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Councilor Winter.
Mr. President, and then this will be deferred.
Sure.
Is that the way it's going to be done?
Well, it's up to us to defer it, but certainly, yes, we have that prerogative, and I think there's, the administration has indicated that if that's the desire of the council, they can work with that. This is to get it introduced. It is on for final action, so we would have some discussion tonight. But, yes, Councilor Gibson.
So, thank you, Mr. President. We had met, I know that all the councilors had met with several of the appointees.
Mm-hmm.
And while I'm fine with voting for it tonight, I think there was a understanding that it would be deferred for 2 weeks.
Mr. President, if I may, procedurally, I think this is the right thing to do. I know the administration is okay with the deferral, and many councilors expressed that desire as well today during our meetings this afternoon. But procedurally, what we have to do is move to get these bills introduced, and then at a later point on the agenda, defer them for 2 weeks. If we don't do that, kind of an arcane rule from our rules of procedures would require us to have a committee of the whole meeting.
All right.
So we need to introduce these and then defer them.
Thank you.
All right, any other discussion? Okay, it's been moved and seconded to suspend the rules for the purpose of introducing EC1, or placing it on tonight's agenda for final action, EC1, the appointment of Sarita Nair. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? And that passes. I move the rules be suspended for the purpose of placing EC2 on tonight's agenda for final action. EC2 is the appointment of Sunile Stewart to the position of Deputy Chief Administrative Officer. There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? That passes. I move the rules be suspended for the purpose of placing EC3 on tonight's agenda for final action. EC3 is the appointment of Sanjay Bhakta for the position of Chief Financial Officer.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? And that passes. I move that the rules be suspended for the purpose of placing EC4 on tonight's agenda for final action. EC4 is the appointment of Lawrence Ryle to the position of Chief Operating Officer. There's a motion and a second. All those in favor say yes. Yes. Opposed? That passes. Vice President Winter.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move approval of the letter of introduction.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor say yes. Yes. Opposed? That passes. We'll move to reports of committee. Councilor Davis.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Finance and Government Operations Committee met on Wednesday, November 29th, and reports out the following items. In the matter of ECs 437, 438, 439, 440, 441, 442, and 459, that receipt be noted. In the matter of EC 453, 461, and 462, that they be approved and acted on at the meeting at which they are reported. In the matter of 059, that it be withdrawn by sponsor. In the matter of 060, 61, R251, 254, and 258, that they do pass. And in the matter of R145 and 255, that they do pass and be acted on at the meeting at which they are reported. Finally, Mr. President, in the matter of R250, that it do pass as amendment. I make a motion to accept this committee report.
There's a motion and a second to accept the FGO committee report. All those in favor say yes. Yes. Opposed? That passes. And then we'll move to deferrals or withdrawals. Councilors, any deferrals or withdrawals at this time? All right. So there are none. And we'll move to the consent agenda. Are there any changes to the consent agenda? Seeing none, Vice President Winter.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move approval of the consent agenda.
There's a motion and a second for approval. Is there a second? Excuse me. All those in favor say yes. Yes. Opposed? That passes. And we'll move to general public comment. We've got 10 people signed up. There'll be a 2-minute time limit. Light on the podium will be green for the first minute and a half, then a bell will ring and the light will turn yellow, indicating you have 30 seconds remaining to wrap up your comments. At 2 minutes, the light will turn red and ring to indicate your time is up. I'll call 3 names at a time, so the first name will be the person that's up at the plate, so to speak, to use a baseball analogy, and then the next person will be on deck, and et cetera. So when you hear your name, there's space up front to come and sit and be prepared to speak. First 3 speakers are Don Schrader, Alan Reed, and Kurt Young. Mr. Schrader. Good evening, sir.
We have much to learn from other cultures. The Babemba tribe of southern Africa live as a closely connected family. When someone wrongs another, the offender is placed in the center of the village, alone, not chained. Everybody stops working, all gather around the offender, and then each person of all ages, one at a time, tells all the good things the person in the center ever did in his or her lifetime. Every experience remembered with detail and accuracy. All good deeds, strengths, and kindnesses told carefully and at length. Just the truth, no lies, no exaggerations. This tribal ceremony can last several days, not stopping until everyone has said all the good things remembered about the offender. And then a joyous fiesta takes place, and the person in the center is welcomed back into the tribe. These ceremonies are rarely needed. Instead of shaming and branding the offender as a hopeless, no-good criminal, the tribe spends days making this person their main concern to heal and restore him or her. We all are far more than the worst thing we ever did or almost did. The tribe concentrates on the good in the offender. This is infinitely better than most of the U.S. court and prison system. I have stated in my will that if someone kills me, I ask my friends to offer forgiveness and friendship to that person.
Thank you. Next, we do not allow applause in the council chambers. If we were to do that, we'd really be disrespecting everyone's time who's here, ourselves and yourselves included, so please, no applause. Mr. Reed, followed by Kurt Young, and then Dinah Vargas.
Mr. President, councilors, good evening, and congratulations on your reelection for several of you, and to your new counselor, especially one I'm very proud of, Councilor Borrego. It's good to see you there. I want briefly to draw to your attention something that I think maybe you might discuss later in regard to Double Eagle 2 Airport. In the late 70s, when we first planned and began buying the open space and the land for Double Eagle Airport, there were two private general aviation facilities here, one at Tramway and I-25, and one where the Coronado complex now exists on the west side. And in a few years, those were closed down and the land used for other purposes. We intended for Double Eagle 2 Airport to be a major economic development project for the long term, to build in Albuquerque a hub for general aviation services, sales, training, repair, cross-country travel, fueling, and to a large degree, I think all the basics are there. I'm not expert today on everything about it, but I have looked at their plan, and all the basics seem to be in good shape. We have a couple of fixed station operators there. We do have training going on, some flight preparation, but I think it would be something worth council time in whatever means is useful to you to consider making Double Eagle 2 a higher priority as an economic development driver for the economy here. We might snare a good piece of the general aviation business in the Southwest. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Kurt Young, followed by Dinah Vargas, and then Shadron Kidwell.
Mr. President and members of the City Council, I'd like to congratulate you all on the election that just occurred, and those of you who've been reelected and those of you who are new to this council. My name is Kurt Young, and I'd just like to say a word of encouragement to this council that we're at a crossroads to improve the city for the better, and the whole city is holding their breath while we make these changes. We have a fantastic person in Lawrence Rael. I have total faith in him and have seen him work in several capacities around the state. And I think that he has the knowledge and ability to help carry out policies that will allow us to move forward in a positive direction, as well as our new mayor. I just ask that we be patient with the policies and allow these policies to take place. And let's make Albuquerque great.
Isn't that abbreviation they call it MAGA, M-A-G-A, Make Albuquerque Great Again? Ms. Vargas.
Good evening, Council President and council members. I signed up to speak tonight on the conditions of our roads and the lighting of our roads. It's extremely dark in Albuquerque. It's like always dark in Albuquerque. Most of the street lights do not work, specifically off the corridor or off of Central, like the side streets off of Central. The lights are there, just the lights aren't on. Kind of like the last administration. That was just me being funny. And so, violence harbors in darkness, and it's always dark here. And so I was hoping you guys could address the darkness in the city, metaphorically and physically, because you can't see. And my second item that I had wanted to address were the art stations, the paint on the street. Well, they're not perfect circles. They're hardly circles at all. I think we paid a lot of money for art, for a bus that nobody wanted and that nobody's riding. And we would like it to look like the rendering photos that we paid for. We've been paying taxes 500 years. And we would like the roads, the lights, and some decent paint on the street, so we don't have to be embarrassed of it every time we look at it. And that's all I got. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you. Next is Shadron Kidwell, followed by Simon Polakowski, and then Todd Kirsting.
Hi, I'm Chadron Kidwell, and I'm here to speak to a concern about the upcoming opening of the art lanes on Central as well. A friend told me that we are being directed, the residents of the city, to a public service announcement that's going to guide us through how to navigate those new turn lanes. And it also says that if we get it wrong, there's going to be officers writing tickets. I don't know if the council is aware, but there's a crime wave landed on the city like a sledgehammer. And in the last 2 weeks, my home in District 6 and my mother-in-law's house across the street in District 6 have been burglarized. For a police force of 1,200 officers, we routinely only have about 600 guns checked out. We are woefully understaffed. And I can speak on behalf of my neighbors, myself, and everyone I have discussed this with. We will be deeply unhappy if precious police resources that should be dealing with homicide and burglary and real crime are being directed to write citations for that godforsaken bus lane, $120 million, that most of the residents of the city did not want. So I urge you to reconsider how you're prioritizing our police, because I don't want to be dealing with my neighbors and myself and everybody that I've spoken to in the city who's experiencing the crime wave in a very personal fashion. So thank you for your time tonight, and I hope that we can work on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Polakowski, followed by Todd Kirsting, followed by Tad Nemiski.
Good evening, Council President and Council. This past week in the Alibi, there was an article entitled Community Cable Controversy. Past 5 years, public access channels have been operated by UPublic. They've been paid approximately $335,000 a year. They're still not in compliance with their contract. That's over $1.8 million, and they haven't fulfilled their contract. Many people have been coming here trying to have a dialogue with council, with the community. Public access is made for the average person so they can voice their concerns about their community, their issues. That's a unique opportunity to have dialogue and meetings. This has not happened. It had happened before, I believe, and you know, there are a lot of misquotation, a lot of half-truths in here. One is that the cable board has met infrequently for the last, not regularly for the last few years. They haven't met at all till this past year and just recently. In fact, there was no cable board. We hope that this will be regular now. Also, you know, there's a controversy that one of the past producers urged the use of marijuana derivatives. Somebody came on naked. The past cable management, over 30% of the shows were religious oriented. I presume well over 90% Christian. Nobody was denied. The past provider management had no problem with First Amendment rights. Let's use this, hopefully this time to get a new provider for public access, and we have now proof after almost 6 years of incompetence or sabotage. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Mr. Kirsting, followed by Tad Nemiski, then Enrique Cardiel.
As they say in the radio business, first-time caller, long-time listener. I'm grateful, first of all, for Barbara Taylor and Matt Whalen and my superintendent at Puerto del Sol Golf Course for creating a great place for families to come grow. Tonight, I just want to take this time 10-year anniversary of the murders of Mr. and Mrs. Yee, to thank the Albuquerque Police Department for putting the killer behind bars. I also want to thank the efforts of the current police department and the community stakeholders on their efforts to help our city through the CASA. Murders like this and crime are easier to solve when there is a positive relationship between APD and the community working together. Here in the next few months, I will announce golf programs and events to build upon the continued efforts in public relations, community policing, to early childhood development. It is important that we find more ways in common like golf with connecting our first responders, government agencies, and most important, the people of Albuquerque who share the common vision in making this the greatest city to raise a family. And finally, I am fortunate to know the Yee family and lucky to learn the power and importance to forgive, but not forget, and to turn the potential energy of anger into the fuel to contribute to a larger cause in life. Thank you for your time.
Next is Mr. Nemiski, then Mr. Cardiel, then Karen Cathy.
Thank you. My name is Ted Nemiski. Crime, murder is record high, 72 so far in Albuquerque. Highest in the nation by capita. Burglary, carjacking. It's sad heaven for criminals. Yes, saint heaven. What brings me to Sanctuary City. We already have Sanctuary City. Now I see it. That's what you get when you get somebody from St. Pius, Notre Dame, and bring a whole staff from his office from Santa Fe, right here. Well, those are big changes. I wonder which way. Yes, Tim Keller created special office, which is Civil Rights Office, protecting illegal immigrants. And that is true. That's what it is. That's what we're heading. This is another San Francisco. Saint heaven for every criminal. And what he's doing, also, well, he tries to eliminate crime from city, corruption from City Hall. I'd like to know how he's gonna approach that. Let me start, like Winter, contract to his wife, attorney, that Clarissa Pena, to her organization, YDI, millions of dollars. I don't have time to go everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cardiel, then Karen Cathy, and the last speaker is Alan Wagman.
Council, it's been a while since I've been here. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I went to this wonderful inaugural event on Friday, and my son went outside to go smoke, and when he came back in, he was approached by people in uniform and asked for his invitation. Luckily, a friend of mine was there and said, you know, we worked on the mayor's campaign together. He's supposed to be here. I went to go get chips 10 minutes later, and I was approached by somebody asking me for my invitation. As we go forward, because there's been a huge commitment by the mayor, and I think many of the councilors that we're running, to put in more officers, what are you going to create? Right? I've heard everyone talk about let's keep people safe by having more officers. I have to tell you, the truth is, you also have to keep people safe from the officers. People don't like to hear that, but that's the truth. That's something I've dealt with, my family has dealt with. And I think whether you make these public spaces places where people feel comfortable to show up or not, you know, you're all part of that. The new administration is part of that. And I want to point out that that's an important public health issue. Can I go somewhere because I'm not wearing a suit and a tie? Can my son show up somewhere without a suit and a tie because of the color of our skin? Because that's really what that came down to. And I'd like you all to consider that as you move forward, because I know we are going to add more officers.
Thank you, Mr. Cadillac. Councilor Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Cardiel. I just want to acknowledge and say thank you to you, and I see some of your team here from the IDHCC and the work that you've been doing organizing in the International District. And I also want to acknowledge, I went to the Young Men of Color Conference this weekend, where y'all got a great shout out for some of the work you're doing there for precisely some of these issues and helping us move past that. I want to follow up and talk to you a little more about that when we have time. We can get into some details about this weekend's events, because I'm proud that no matter who you all supported, that your organization and your folks helped to bring more people to the democratic process, and we want them to see the culmination of that. Thanks for sharing that with us. I'm sorry that happened, but we want to talk about more of it, and I appreciate your help, your ongoing help, to help us find members for the CPC and other things so that we can continue to have that conversation. Thanks for bringing that to our attention.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you, sir. Next is Ms. Kathy, followed by Alan Wagman.
I never can tell if that thing works. So I'm going to start out that I'm wishing all of you a year of proactive decisions for all of Albuquerque constituents. And so I came also to talk on R17255. I'm excited. 272 children. That's wonderful. I'm a preschool professional myself. I worked for Head Start for many years, and I've also worked private preschool. And then I also wanted to share something that's from the Who's Who, a political directory that the League of Women Voters Education Fund puts out. And I think it pertains also to city council and officials in the city. I'm going to read it as it is, but people can fill in the blank with city council or with mayor or whatever. Your views as a voter help determine how your elected officials may legislate on a given issue or what kind of policy decisions executive officers may make. Let your representatives and executive officials know what you think. Telephone calls to the offices of legislatures have greatest impact, along with written letters, cards, and telegrams. Emails also are useful. Be brief in your message, state who you are, and give your reasons for urging them to act as you recommend. Providing any relevant details on the impact their actions may have on you, your friends, or family members. If writing, include your address and sign your name legibly. If they vote as you wish, let them know you appreciate their decision. And then I'd like to end with, it's just a pledge for young people, but I think influence can mean anything, not just drugs. I pledge to be above the influence of alcohol and drugs, bullying, and violence. I pledge to be a role model for my peers, my family, my community, my school. I pledge to be above the influence.
Thank you, Ms. Kathy. Final speaker is Alan Wagman.
Mr. President, members of council, thank you. Mr. Rael, welcome. I hope that in future meetings we'll see your boss. We've had too many years with a mayor who never showed up and probably never even knew what anybody said. The only public place we've ever had to make statements to our officials is right here, and we had a mayor who never showed up. I hope Mayor Keller does in fact come at least sometimes. I'm here because of the $25,000 the council voted to spend on an audit of the monitor. I remember when the monitor's contract was first being signed, council delayed the signing of that contract because you had questions about it. But you never questioned Scott Greenwood's contract. You never questioned the performance of Huntsman and Gonterman and Montano, who were hired, newly created positions for $300,000 a year, when none of them proved to be able to write policies required under the CASA. There was never an audit of that. The council would not withhold retention bonuses from high-ranking officers who couldn't do their jobs. But $25,000 for the monitor. It makes one wonder where the council is. I don't want to just come up here and be negative, and I have a suggestion. It might not fly, but as most of you know, I was on the Police Oversight Task Force that helped write the oversight ordinance. Chief Eden did not obey the ordinance. And maybe it's not necessary with Mayor Keller, but it would be important if you could pass or amend that ordinance and create civil and criminal penalties for a police chief who did not obey the civilian oversight ordinance. I'm sure there's other creative solutions you could find to show that you really mean something.
Mr. Wagman, and you know, I was actually in some of the monthly meetings with the monthly meetings with the monitor between them and the previous administration and the APOA, who's also a party at those meetings. And I was, I think I used the word flabbergasted. I did not speak in the meeting because I'm usually, as a counselor, you know, we're not, the council itself or individual counselors are not party to the agreement, but I stated to all present that I was flabbergasted that there was such a resistance to having regular reporting of the progress of the reform to the APOA, and we've got to to the oversight board and the oversight agency, and you know, we're all hopeful. We've got a lot of things. The mayor has a lot of things on his plate, and the new leadership has on theirs. But one thing I did also hear repeatedly in those meetings from people on the civilian oversight side was that they felt that Chief Garcia had been helpful during a brief time when he was kind of handling everything, had done a good job. So I'm optimistic about that. I certainly appreciate your perspective here, and we'll all kind of push for the best here. Thank you.
Mr. President?
Councilor Sanchez.
I have one comment, and that was I want to thank you for your work on the implementation of the board, but also I want to correct you on the issue regarding Scott Greenwood. There was an internal audit done on Scott Greenwood on some of the work that he was doing with the Albuquerque Police Department, and he was supposed to pay some money back. I'm not sure if that ever got done. We can have our new administration look at that. But there was some questions regarding some of the work by Scott Greenwood.
Okay. Can I respond to that now, or should I wait till the next council meeting?
Just a comment, not a response. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wagman. Appreciate it. All right, we'll move on to announcements. Councilor Davis.
Thank you, Mr. President. There will be a Finance and Government Operations Committee meeting on Monday, December 11th at 5 p.m. in the Council Committee Room on our 9th floor.
And Councilor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. There will be a Land Use Planning and Zoning Committee meeting on Wednesday, December 13th at 5 p.m. in the Council Committee Room on the 9th floor.
And Councilor Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Angel Tree lighting will take place on Civic Plaza tomorrow evening at 6 p.m., and that is celebrating the life of those young children that lost their life here in Albuquerque and across New Mexico because of domestic violence.
Thanks for putting that together, Councilor Sanchez. Councilor Gibson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would just like to acknowledge Mr. Zaman and Sandy Chavez for all of the work they did to make Friday night as nice as it was. I didn't see one mistake. If there was one mistake, it must have been tiny, and you fixed it right away because it really seemed to go quite smoothly. There was a big crowd there, and everybody seemed very happy. Oh, and one other thing. I forgot to acknowledge my family who were there. My sister, Sue Gibson, and my brother-in-law, my favorite brother-in-law. Of course, he's my only brother-in-law, Dave Joseph, and I felt horrible about that. But I was a little nervous, I think, when I started out and left them off. But they've always been there for me, and I just wanted to acknowledge them. And hopefully they're watching. Thank you.
Mr. President, Councilor Gibson, thank you for that. I would also like to acknowledge Jesse Hunt, who was great to work with from the transition team, as well as Alan Packman, and also John Fitzpatrick, who were very professional and easy to work with. So thanks to them.
So yeah, and it was my bad on that. I think people were in a hurry to move on to the rest of their evening, but I also want to thank you. I want to apologize for not doing that at the ceremony itself, but thanks to you and Sandy and the folks from Mayor Keller's team. So let's see, we'll move on to public hearings. AC 1712, Mr. Melendrez.
Thank you, Mr. President. Councilors, this is an appeal of the Environmental Planning Commission's denial of an amendment to a site development plan for subdivision and the denial of an associated site development plan for building permit. As part of the EPC's approval of a site development plan for this site back in 2005, it imposed a condition of approval prohibiting fast food restaurants with drive-up windows. The developers of this site now request that prohibition be removed to effectively allow one fast food restaurant with drive-up window at its proposed Starbucks location at the site plan area. The EPC considered this request and determined that it should not lift its 2005 prohibition, citing the site's proximity to the Bosque School, to the open space trailhead within the Bosque, and to the River Bosque itself. It also identified that the drive-up window would be inconsistent with goals for the area relating to walkability and pedestrian friendliness. The applicant for this request appealed that decision by the Environmental Planning Commission, essentially arguing that the EPC failed to consider changes at the site, other changes that would otherwise promote pedestrian friendliness in the form of pedestrian amenities at this location, that it did not adequately take into account the location of the proposed drive-up, and it also offered some supplemental evidence at the Lujo hearing relating to emissions impacts at the site. However, the Lujo, having reviewed this matter, determined that the EPC did not err in denying the requested drive-up and identified substantial evidence in the record to support the outcome of the EPC, which is essentially to deny the request. You referred this matter to your land use hearing officer for review. Tonight, you will consider whether or not to accept or reject the recommendation of your land use hearing officer, which proposes that the EPC be affirmed and that the drive-up window be denied. You will not hear from the parties tonight. If you have questions relating to this, I'll do my best to answer those out of the record. However, if you have questions beyond that, we could the council could vote to reject the hearing officer's recommendation, in which case we'd have a full hearing on this matter in 2 weeks.
Councilor Gibson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to move to accept the Lujo's recommendations and findings.
There's a motion and a second to accept the findings and recommendations of the Lujo. And is there any discussion? Seeing none, I think I did hear a motion and a second from Councilor Jones. Councilor Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have one question regarding the new IDO that will take place. I guess it will go into effect in 6 months. Can the applicant come back in 6 months and make that request, or will they qualify under the new zoning code to be able to put the drive-up window in?
Mr. President, that particular issue is not developed in the record. The effect of the new IDO was not discussed. There was not argument or presentation made by the applicant or the appellants in this case, who are one and the same, about the effect of the IDO. So that having not been developed in the record, I'm not sure that it's appropriate for us to discuss that. If you'd like to have more information about that, I would recommend that you reject the Land Use Hearing Officer's recommendation and hold a full hearing on this matter. I can report sort of only factually, without further evaluation of what that means, that this particular property in the conversion process, because that is a matter of public record at this point, was converted to the PD zone in the IDO, which is effectively the same entitlements presently with the same site planning approvals.
Thank you.
All right, any other comments? It's been moved and seconded to accept the Lujo's findings and recommendation, or recommendation and findings. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed?
No.
And show of hands said no. All
No.
right, and that passes on a 6-3 vote. We'll move on now to the ECs that were discussed, and I know that there's a desire on some of the councils to go ahead and defer this. However, since the appointees are present, if if there's any questions that we might ask publicly, I know people are having private meetings and so forth, but I certainly want to preclude that before we move for any deferrals. Any discussion on these appointments? Why don't we just say we'll start with EC1, which is Ms. Nair. Anyone? Councilor Harris and then Councilor Pena.
I just want to say that it's my opinion that for the most part, I think always I've supported the administration and voted to approve or confirm their appointments. I think the administration should have a significant degree of deference in that. But I think the deferral is just so that we can actually do our job, because it's not a rubber stamp, it is actual deliberative process. And I just want to welcome the new administration, and I just want to thank them for serving. We have a tough chapter in the city of Albuquerque right now, and we need us all to work together. Thank you for being willing to step up.
All right, Councilor Pena.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to say I'll defer to the rest of the councilors, but I'm ready to move forward now. I've met some of these folks. I've known some of these folks for a long time. I just really appreciate Mayor Keller's decision to really put a diverse group of people together. It's something that's very enlightening for me, and I look forward to working with the administration. Thank you.
Councilor Davis.
Couldn't say it any better than with Councilor Pena. I appreciate it very much. It's my intent to vote for these, but I do think in order to allow our staff the opportunity to do that work and for us to do our job, I would support a deferral at least until our next meeting, so we have a chance to meet one-on-one, and councilors with particular questions have the chance to ask those.
Thank you. Councilor Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also agree with a two-week deferral. I want to thank Mayor Keller for letting the council know that he had no opposition to that deferral. But I think more importantly is I know you guys were working on the transition team with the state auditor's office and trying to work on the transition team here. So, we will be meeting with you. I think the 2-week deferral will be in order. And if there's any questions by this council, we can all work together in answering those questions.
Councilor Borrego, and my bad. I should have introduced Councilor Borrego, and welcome.
Thank you.
We're all looking forward to working with you, and okay, I think we can have applause to welcome Councilor Borrego. I've been known to be a little too bitter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and councilors. I'm usually on the other side of the podium, so I know it's a little confusing. I want to welcome everyone and thank everyone this evening for being here, for your comments. I also want to welcome the staff for our new mayor, Keller, and also the staff. I've worked with Mr. Rael when I was a city employee, and he's always been very professional. The other appointees I've met, I know their resumes. I feel very comfortable with his decisions, and I think that in 2 weeks when we do appoint them, I think that we are going to move forward in a very positive direction for the city. And I believe that there are a lot of issues that we have to work on, at least my constituents discussed with me, including crime, and I know that issue was raised tonight, and it's been raised all over the city, I believe. I really look forward to working with these individuals, and I know that it's not going to be immediate change, but I think that all of us together working incrementally to affect change, I hope the citizens will see that in time. And I hope that it happens quickly, but I understand how things happen, and it's not always easy, especially when we don't have phones and computers and everything else that we should. But we have similar values, and I think that's what's important. So we want to create a city that's healthy and that we can all raise our families in. So thank you all for.
Vice President Winter.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for a 2-week deferral.
There's a motion and a second for a 2-week deferral on EC1, and I'll just echo the statement of Councilor Davis and Councilor Harris. Certainly welcome you all aboard and look forward to working with you. And also, we recognize how quickly the mayor had to move, and I appreciate the effort that's being made, and I think we'll be good to go with maybe some questions and wrap this up next time around. So there is a motion and a second for a 2-week deferral on EC1. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Opposed? And that passes. And then we'll move to EC2, appointment of Sunile Stewart. I'll go ahead and move confirmation just as a procedural matter. There's a motion and a second. Vice President Winter.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move a 2-week deferral on EC2.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? That passes. And I'll move EC3, the appointment of Sanjay Bhakta to the position of Chief Financial Officer. Move confirmation. There's a motion and a second. Vice President Winter.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move a 2-week deferral on EC-3.
It's been moved and second for a 2-week deferral. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? And that passes. I'll move confirmation on EC4, appointment of Lawrence Farrell to the position of COO. There's a motion and a second. Vice President Winter.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move a 2-week deferral on EC-4.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? And that passes. And that takes us to final actions. Councilor Pena, R145.
Thank you, Mr. President. R 145 is directing the administration to install 4-way stop signs at the intersections of Botana and Gonzalez, 62nd, Sunset Gardens and Field, 98th and Amola Mesa, and Camino San Martin, and 86th, making an appropriation. I actually have an amendment, and the amendment is, I don't have the full amendment with me, but anyway, it's the floor substitute, I'm sorry. It's R145, I think. Oh, here it says. It's in your iPads. I don't have a copy in front of me. But what this does is actually there's four intersections. We've heard this in the past, but one of them I'm doing away with. So I'm removing the one on 62nd and Sunset Gardens, and the one on Mola Mesa and 98th Street. We're actually going to do a study there, and the two will be moving forward. So since this is a substitute, I'll need to defer it to until the December 18th City Council meeting.
So
I move it do pass.
So there's a motion for the resolution and for the substitution, and then we'll follow that with a deferral. Just so, does this reduce it down to 2 intersections then, Councilor Pena, at this point?
Basically.
Yeah.
Basically.
And then study the.
And then study the other and removal of another one.
Okay, yeah, just that, I couldn't make that out from the title.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there's, let's see, you did move a do pass?
I did.
And that was moved and seconded, so, and then it's been moved and seconded for the floor substitute for R145. All those in favor of the substitute, say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Opposed? And that passes. And then Councilor Pena moved the deferral. And there was a motion and a second for the deferral on to December 18th. Any further discussion? If Councilor Harris.
I'd like to ask the sponsor if she consider a 30-day deferral, just so that if they have any concerns about this with the new administration, they can look at it.
Sure.
All right, so the motion has been changed to, which meeting would this be? The second meeting in January? Is that, or no?
Mr. President, point of order.
The first meeting, the 4th of January. Councilor Davis.
Mr. President, point of order. Just to remind myself, I think at our FGO meeting, we were concerned about the expiration of the bill and needing to be done in December. Is that still a matter, and would this substitute, would a 30-day deferral effectively kill that bill?
Mr. President, Councilor Davis, thank you for bringing that up. The bill was introduced December 19th of last year. If the bill was heard on December 18th, would be okay. December, the first meeting in January would be too long unless we scheduled and scripted a motion to suspend the rules with regard to this bill for a month and kept it alive.
Thank you, Mr. Zaman, and Mr. President, I might just suggest we keep our December 18th motion for now. Since we only have one item we're carrying forward to the next thing, hopefully the new administration can have a chance to weigh in. I know they did so from the department at the FGO meeting, and if we need to work on that, certainly we could then.
Yeah, so just to be clear, so at the 18th meeting, we could have that script ready and suspend the rules for another, however long we want to, in order to give the new municipal development department a chance to look at this if necessary. Okay, thanks.
So we'll leave the motion at the 1 month deferral?
Actually, the 2 weeks.
Okay, so with the December 18th deferral, yeah, as was stated, there's no reason the administration can't look this over. If they have a great concern, then at that time we could defer again and suspend the rules. All right. So we'll leave that at the 18th. There's a motion and a second for that deferral. All those in favor say yes. Yes. Opposed? And that passes. And that takes us to the remaining business, which is the election of president, vice president, the election of chair of the committee of the whole, and the approval of committee appointments, which traditionally, I'll just say that now, has been deferred by the elected president. So we'll start with the election of president. Well, let me read this. Just regarding the procedure. A memo regarding the election of officers is in your iPads. I will first take nominations for president. If after the second round there's not a majority vote selecting one individual, I'll make a motion to reopen the floor for nominations. If there are two or more nominees, the clerk of the council will call the roll in order by council district. And Councilor Gibson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to nominate Councilor Pat Davis for council president.
And I will second that motion. And so there's a motion. Councilor Harris.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to nominate Ken Sanchez for council president.
We go in order, right? So we need to go ahead and vote on this and then subsequent.
I'm sorry, Mr. President, we take all nominees,
Okay.
have all the nominees up, then we vote on them in order.
Okay, that's fine then. Yeah, so there's a motion and a second from Councilor Pena for Councilor Sanchez for president. So based on this, we'll start with the first motion. There was a motion and a second for Councilor Davis. All those in favor say yes and raise your hands. Yes? No, they're going to?
Oh,
you're going to call the roll?
Crystal will call the roll.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I beg your pardon.
Okay.
Right.
And when I call your name, state who you
Right.
desire for this
Thank you.
position. Counselor Sanchez.
Yours truly.
Counselor Benton.
Councilor Davis.
Counselor Pena. Counselor Winter.
Councilor Sanchez.
Counselor Borrego.
Counselor Sanchez.
Counselor Davis. Counselor Gibson.
Davis.
Counselor Jones.
Sanchez.
Counselor Harris.
Sanchez.
Congratulations, Counselor Sanchez is our next council president.
Thank you. I want to thank this council and the support of this council. We need to work together with the new administration and Mayor Keller. I think we are looking at some very exciting, yet we are looking at some very challenging times. But I think it's going to be paramount that we collaborate and work together in creating some of the challenges that we are facing in our city. And I also want to welcome our new city councilor, Councilor Borrego. I had a chance to work with her when she was a planner for the city, working for the county. But I just think we've got some really great opportunities with Mayor Keller coming on board. And I've looked at some of the resumes of the administration, and there are some stellar resumes. And I think it's going to be a great team, and we all working together and trying to move this city forward. But thank you.
All right, thank you. And we'll move on to Vice President. And I would like to nominate Vice President Councilor Davis for Vice President. There's a motion and a second.
Mr. President,
Councilor Pena.
I'd like to nominate Counselor Harris for Vice President.
All right, there's a motion and a second for each. And
So for the position of Vice President, we have Counselors Davis and Harris up.
I'll call your name and simply state who you select. Counselor Sanchez.
Counselor Harris.
Counselor Benton.
Counselor Davis.
Counselor Pena. Counselor Winter.
Counselor Harris.
Counselor Borrego.
Counselor Harris.
Counselor Davis. Counselor Gibson.
Davis.
Counselor Jones.
Harris.
Counselor Harris. Congratulations, Counselor Harris.
All right, we'll now move to election of the chair of the Committee of the Whole. Same process. And so we'll now take nominations for chair of Committee of the Whole. Counselor Gibson?
I'm sorry, yeah, Mr. President, I move Counselor Gibson.
Okay, I'm sorry. So there's a motion, and I'll second that for Counselor Gibson for chair of Committee of the Whole.
Mr. President?
Sanchez?
I'd like to nominate Counselor Jones for Committee of the Whole.
Second.
All right. And there's a motion and a second. Is there a second for Counselor Jones? Any others? Okay.
Okay. So we have Counselors Gibson and Jones for the position of chair of Committee of the Whole. Counselor Sanchez?
Counselor Jones.
Counselor Benton?
Counselor Gibson?
Counselor Pena? Counselor Winter?
Counselor Jones.
Counselor Borrego?
Counselor Gibson.
Counselor Davis? Counselor Gibson?
Gibson.
Counselor Jones?
Jones.
Counselor Harris?
Jones.
Congratulations, Counselor Jones.
All right, thank you. There being no other business, this city council meeting is adjourned.
Mr. President, do we have to officially defer the committees, or are we good?
Pardon me? Pardon me?
Do we have to officially
Mr. President, at this point, under the rules, the council would appoint members to the various committees.
Oh, yeah, I beg your pardon. So this would be up to Counselor Sanchez if you would like to.
You want to make that motion? Do you have it with you in your script?
I do not.
Okay, I move that the rules be suspended for the purpose of deferring the approval of committee appointments to the December 18th council meeting, and that the current makeup of the council committees remain in place until the new committee appointments are approved, with Councilor Borrego serving on the committee that were previously filled by Councilor Lewis.
There's a motion and a second for the suspension of the rules to defer the committee appointments to December 18th. All those in favor say yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed? And that passes. Thank you, Counselor Harris. Went out on a sour note.